I wrote this talk before Halloween, which is why we've got spiders, gophers, and butterflies. I don't do Perl 6 or Go professionally. I just think they're kind of interesting. And I wrote some concurrent code recently, and so I wanted to do a talk about it because it seemed like it might be fun. So spiders, gophers, and butterflies. Who here knows anything about Go or has done any Go? Quite a lot of people, I should think. Yeah, a few. How about Perl 6? Yeah. Yeah, and you. Yeah, we know. We know about you. I'm hoping you'll help me. I think I found a bug in my code. A little Perl versus Go concurrency. Please talk to my... Oh, great. I'm Sue Spence. Some people may know me, some people don't. For a while I was a leader of London PM, just because. It just happened. I've been programming in Perl for about, I don't know, 15, 20, not quite 20 years. I've known about it for longer than that. I was a C programmer actually for many years, which was one of the reasons why I liked Go. Because if anybody's looked at Go, it's a reboot of the C language. They did some things to make it easier, some things don't. But anyway, I like that, amongst other things. And it's very hot. It has some killer apps. It has a lot of traction in London. The Go groups get a lot of people. And I did this talk in the Go London user group and stunned them into silence because I'll talk about it later. But Go and Perl 6 are very different philosophically. So concurrent programming. Who here does any concurrent programming a lot or a little bit or much? In Perl 5, I used to avoid it. I like the concept, but I was always having to work with people's code where they used naked fork and they rolled their own basically. They didn't want to use anybody's frameworks because it's too much fun to type fork and do things. And then they would complain, usually to me or anybody who would listen, that the jobs that they ran with this stuff would blow up randomly. And it's like, yeah, because did you type fork? Yeah, it's gonna. I've never run into any production code like that was particularly fully sane. But I like the concept. So anyway, form of computing in which several computations are executed in overlapping time. So, and it's more popular than ever. We have some languages like Perl 6 and Go that have modern concurrency operations in them, because computers aren't getting faster. So software, if you want more speed, you're going to have to go parallel. But it's dangerous. It is dangerous. And this is why. Logically correct concurrent code is not easy to write. It's a lot harder to write than single-threaded stuff. And it's also harder to debug it because you've got multiple things going on in one process. And I still think this is hard enough. We have a hard enough time writing good, logically correct code anyway. So the pain points: race conditions, deadlocks, live locks, resource starvation. And I have a volunteer. We always just ignore things like this. What's a deadlock? So Chris has got the crocodile, and he wants the butterfly. He can't have it because I've got a lock on it, and I want that. I want his crocodile, but he's got a lock on that. He's not letting it go, so we're stuck. This is dead. We can't move any further because he needs this to move forward with his work. I need that damn thing, and he won't give it up. So it's stopped. And in a lot of languages, certainly in the past, somebody has to come in and manually kill it. Because somebody has to come in and kill it because it can't recover on its own when it's like that. Likewise, there's live locks. Those happen too. And that's equivalent to people trying to walk through a hallway and they both turn the same way. So Nope, 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 nope. So it's not dead, but it's not doing anything useful. Likewise, resource starvation. He's got these things. I've got this. This is nice for me, but I need all of those to do my work. And he's not giving them up because he's using them. And maybe he needs this too. This is a form. This is like the deadlock, but not really, because it's still alive, but it's starved. So maybe every so often I give up the lock on this and let him have it for a little while. He gets it. And then maybe he lets it go again, and then maybe I greedily lock it for a long time, and so he's still waiting. So you could end up with code that's slower than single-threaded code. If you had two things running, it would be slower. Thank you very much. And these are just some of them. So, I don't know, why compare Go versus Perl 6? Well, Perl 6, I think, if anybody's gone to any Jonathan Worthington talks, or Liz, or anybody else, but Jonathan Worthington in particular, they know it has modern concurrency support. Perl 6 is a contrasting basic philosophy to Go. So the concurrency mechanisms are different. However, they are similar. They're direct C language descendants. I think that's uncontroversial. Go more than Perl, but still. And the concurrency's inspired by this man. All hail Sir Tony Hoare. So communicating sequential processes, this is just one of the things that Sir Tony Hoare is, or Sir Anthony Hoare is famous for. He's a 1980 Turing Award winner. I would just like to see a Turing Award. I don't think I'm ever going to win anything like that. An awful lot of what a lot of us have been doing for the last, for our entire careers, he was involved in it. He also invented Quicksort, I believe. So anyway, I haven't really tried reading the paper. I think it's above me. I studied biology. This is in the Go doc. Somebody has actually spent time implementing the algorithms for communication sequential processing and published it. So if you're ever bored some night, need help going to sleep, you could look at that and do it. So Go has deliberately restrained syntax. People aware of this? They went through their big exercise is to have they think you should have just enough tools to get your job done, maybe, and that's it. They don't want you to have fun like we do in the Perl world. We like syntax. Perl does not have any, this is just anathema for us. We like knobs and switches. We like steps to get up and grab something more easily. We don't have this kind of hair shirt mentality. It's not really hair shirt, but they do really believe that they don't want people to get creative. I'm not sure that really works. So they are kind of chalk and cheese. And I noticed this when I implemented the code. I mean, this is where we come from, I think. What they make easy. And my feeling is, if you've got restricted syntax, your programs are probably going to be longer. And they are. They are a little bit. Because they've stopped me from being creative, but I'm going to have to type more to get something done. And there's less code to debug. So Perl 6, who's run Perl 6? Anybody here? We've got a few. Well, yeah, I know about you. I've had fun playing with that. You must use Rakudo Star if you're going to try it. It's the only one that really works. Go is really easy to get. You can try that one online. They have a sandbox online, but it's very easy to install, and they cover all the major architectures. So it's very simple. What you get Go routines, channels. There's the Go runtime, which is compiled into your code by the Go compiler, which does some simple management of Go routines. Go routines are very lightweight threads, and you have to use locks, because if you do anything, if you're not careful, well, most people can't completely decompose their code into segments that don't overlap at all, that don't have any either race condition issues or resource issues. So they're lightweight threads. They're extremely inexpensive. You can treat them as almost free. I run codes that generates fractals, and you can spawn a Go routine for every point that and it's fine on just a normal laptop. It'll run probably just all right. You may run into resource issues that are operating system level, but Go will deal with that. So you can do thousands of them at a time. So the Go runtime, as I mentioned, it's compiled into your program, manages your Go routines, and it does some deadlock detection. So it'll crash and burn if you end up with the crocodile butterfly issue. I haven't tried finding out at what all it will find, but it'll find live. I think can find some live locks. It can't find everything, but it finds the most gross violations of concurrent programming. So Perl 6, the concurrency components are more high level. There's more of them. So you've got promises, which are like futures, which I think it was inspired by Haskell et al. And that's a more high level construct. It's basically you start something running. You'll see whether or not you can check to see if the status of it. There are a number of methods you can call on this. There are supplies, channels. There's proc async, which is strictly for asynchronous programming. I'm not going to show any of those. And more VM is the thing that instead of a Go runtime, you're running your Perl 6 code in a virtual machine, which basically manages your threading for you. So more syntax, more VM. The building blocks are started away. So it's simple under the hood still. It isn't as though you have, yes, there's a lot more syntax built on them, but it's still fairly simple under the hood. You start something running, and then you wait for it to finish. And it's fairly simple. It's either planned when it starts, and then when it finishes, it's either kept or broken, and it'll throw exceptions for you nicely. And you've got all these things you can look at. So you can start something, and then you say in, and that's in so many seconds, minutes, whatever. You can wait for all of or any of a promise to be finished. You can have a promise that when it's kept, the then keyword will do something after that for you. So it's composable. It's much more high level. You can do more with it without having to you're just not dealing with primitives. Go calls their concurrency operations primitives, so that's how they feel about it. There is no high level. I haven't checked lately, I'm expecting somebody to come up with frameworks for Go concurrency. I don't know if they've done it yet, because they're really also they're kind of anti-framework as well. You can manually keep or break a promise if you decide that you want to do that. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all these right now. So this stunned the Go people into silence when I talked about this. Don't tell anybody. They got upset by this. Not because atomic operations are bad, but because there's Unicode there's a Unicode character for it. And this upset people. Somebody mentioned the poo character. Anyway, they got very upset by this. There was this kind of a trolly Reddit thread I heard about. I didn't actually go look at it. Reddit just annoys me. There's too much trolling on Reddit. It's worse than Twitter. So atomic operations, I haven't even tried this yet, but they look great to me. The idea of just, instead of me having to set a lock on something, if Perl 6 is going to guarantee that I've added, subtracted, I love this. Added, plus equal, minus equal, plus, and Perl 6 is going to guarantee for me that it's atomic. Nifty. I don't have to do any, but they saw this and they were just I can't type that. So it's okay, you don't have to. There's actually, I'm not going to show you. You can type, there are other, well, you'll know, but I can't remember what the actual commands are for it. But you don't have to know this, but by God, I would keep this in a buffer and just copy and paste it in. So I wrote a web scraper in Go because I went for a job interview and they said write a web scraper, and I said okay. And they were pretty good. They said you could write it in any language, so I could have written in Perl 6 or anything else. But it was a Go shop, so I thought I'd better write it in Go. And I thought both Go and Perl 6 were quite well suited for it. So you start with a seed URL, do a get, parse the page, get all the URLs out of it, keep track of the ones that you've already seen, and then go through. So that decomposes very nicely into concurrent operations. And in fact, you'll be waiting. I mean, if Google didn't do this concurrently, then they never would have indexed anything, or Yahoo or anybody else. And that was the other thing. You know, basically, when I saw they wanted it written concurrently, or pretty much they wouldn't have invited me back to the next stage, which they did, thankfully, but that's all right. So when I wrote this, I thought, okay, well, I need to break this down so that it's as simple as possible, so there's no conflicts between each Go routine in this case. So I used two channels. One of them communicated the URLs to process, and I decided that I would put a bit of a break on it. Go's channels, they have a thing called a buffered channel that it will not hang, but it will block if it's full. So I just created one that would stop the crawling, so that there were only 20 or 30 or however many in flight at one time, simply because I found that when I ran it in very massively parallel, that it would actually crash for operating system reasons, usually too many open file descriptors or some such. But otherwise, I let it have unlimited Go routines, and one for every URL that was processed, and that worked quite well, and it was very fast. So this is the buffered channel. All you have to, that's very simple, but you have to explicitly say, okay, I've got a number of tokens. I called it tokens, but it just could be anything here. And it could have been anything. I just let it be an integer. So the maximum number running at any one time, I just limited it to default to 20. And the work list is just an array of strings. And I've been playing with Go for a number of years now, and it still bugs me that they do that backwards. But how many people here would find that strange? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. 30 years of looking at arrays being the other way is just weird. But you do kind of get used to it. And a map is basically our hashes, associated array. And because it's a strongly typed language, as you may be aware, it is strongly typed, although you are allowed to take shortcuts with typing as long as the compiler can figure out what you meant, which in this case it can't. So I told it was a string, an array of strings with Boolean value. And the way I crawled it was to start with 1, because the crawl indicator is the number of. It actually worked that time. The crawl indicator is the number of URLs that need to be processed at any time. So it starts with 1, goes up as the crawling commences for every page that returns URLs, and then it drops down to 0 when it's finished, when it's found all the URLs that it can find. And so it starts at 1 and just goes up. Is this visible? In the back, by the way, I was hoping I picked a big enough font. Sorry about the purple. I can't really fix that now. So that's a Go. Yeah. So it is fairly simple. Here's another way that you know that Go is really, fundamentalist about having small amounts of syntax. Guess how many ways you can do a loop in Go? One. It's a for loop. Doesn't matter what you want to do. It's a for loop. You can have as many. It's like Model T Ford, any color as long as it's black. So anyway, for loop. I had already set the crawl indicator above. I could have put it in the beginning of the loop, and perhaps I should have. But the crawl indicator starts at 1. I keep going as long as it's greater than 0. And each time we go around this loop, we decrement it. So this is pretty much this is guaranteed to work as long as I don't crash in some other way. So check the visited, if it's been visited before, because otherwise you're going to keep crawling the same URLs each time. Don't want to do that. And for each URL, then there's a crawl routine that goes and parses and sends them back. And here's the buffered channel. So you get a token and then release it when you're done crawling. Oops. So that worked. I would say, it was fast. They were really happy. I was surprised. Apparently this company, they do this. They ask everybody to do this, and I think hardly anybody actually submits working code. I was surprised. I guess that's the way it's always been. There's always more people that want to write code than actually can. I actually had fun writing it, and I'll do a demonstration of both of them in a minute. But I'm going to show. I'm now going to show my code. The Perl 6 code. I'm just going to show if I can get. Actually show that in a code editor, because there are only 80 lines of it, because it was much easier, I thought. Much easier to read anyway. So is that visible? Is there much trouble with the could that be? I'll see if I can. Is that better? How about that?
What about if you change the background to dark?
Sorry? It is not. It's Atom, because I wanted to be able to do things like compose plus and minus to make it bigger and smaller. So, Liz, is use v6 deprecated? I heard somebody complaining that do I need to do this anymore? This is a minor point. This is a minor style point, but.
I'm not sure actually I can do that. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about that? It's just the use v6 line. Do we need that anymore?
Yeah,
I think
you're making sure that Perl 5 won't accept it. So.
That's good. But otherwise, I think this is quite readable to people who are very familiar with Perl 5. There's not a whole lot different here, other than when I show you the promises. But Scott, I only needed, in order to do the scraping I wanted to do, I only needed 3 modules, which was kind of refreshing. I've got an array this is the visited array. It's called URL scene in this one. Oh, that's handy. So sub main. This is where it all starts. If I'm just running it, I really like the fact that it's really easy to do command line parameters in Perl 6. This is kind of an aside, but I'm sick of wasting time goofing around with command line parameters. It's really easy. It just is hit. This is the default for the domain. I can override it on the command line, and I get a sensible error message without me doing any code, other than just specifying that. So I didn't bother doing anything to validate the command line parameters. Perl 6 does that for me, so that's kind of nice. So I start off with, oh look, I've got one way to do a loop. I've got 2 ways to do it. And it looks a little more like English. I think it's quite, this, I mean, hopefully, now that I've had to make it big, it doesn't all fit in the same page, but, so I've got a loop that goes around the URLs. It's only starting out with 1. And sorry. This is the first one. It's either londonpm.org. Oh, that's a good one because it's not very big. It either starts with that or whatever I type in on the command line. Shift it off, and then crawl it. And then I push it onto the array of promises because I'm going to keep doing this. Once it's made promises because that loop is happening more than once. When I've made those promises, then I drop down and check to see which ones have been kept already. So there's the promise status. If it's equal to kept, then get the results out. The results is an array of URLs that it found on that page. Very simple. And then shift it off, go through, push onto the URLs array if I haven't seen them already, and then terminate if either the number of elements in the array is 0, and we've waited for all the promises. And then we're done. And the crawling code is quite simple. It's much smaller, I assure you. There was about 150 lines of crawling code for Go, partly because I couldn't find a DOM parser that I thought was really any good or documented very well for Go, so I manually did that. Somebody told me that he was sure there must be one, but he couldn't actually tell me what it was. So. Go it's almost 10 years old now, not quite. But when you have a language that's 20 or 30 years old, everything's been written for you, mostly. So, and in this case, somebody has already written for Perl 6 a perfectly good XML document, the HTML parser XML was the most drama-free way of getting all the anchor tags that I could see. You know, this was a lot more work in Go. It was slower in Perl 6 because doesn't compile down to executable the way Go does, but Go made me do more work. And most of the time, my time is worth more than the computer's time. So if it's defined, go through. I had a couple of rules here. I wanted to make sure that they were the URLs were absolute, and I was only crawling. I wasn't crawling everything on the web, just everything that's in the domain that it start with, because otherwise you're never done. And I actually don't want to be Yahoo or Google. And that's it. So that's all there is. Who wants to see if it runs?
Live demo.
Live demo. Steve tried to talk me into live coding, and I told him no. Also, I didn't trust that I would have working Wi-Fi, so I actually have something running locally that's written in Crow, actually. I may share that if we have time. I'm not sure. All right, let's see if I can. Can we do it? I can barely read that here, so that's probably not. I thought I had changed the settings, but I haven't, so bear with me 1 second here. No, I don't think so. Let's see if that, no. It might actually work. Maybe not. Is that even readable? Let's see. Okay, this is the Go. London PM actually is bigger than you think because of all the mailman stuff. Then maybe we'll not do that one. I'll just quickly look here. All right. One thing that's kind of nice about Go is even though it's statically compiled and all that, you can use it like a scripting language, and it's just as fast. I just say Go run, it should just compile it and run it for me. This is actually hitting locally randomly generated URLs that are numbers. That's maybe a little bit easier. That just shows that each page and how many children were generated automatically. So let's see if we can do this with Perl 6, what it does. I have too much code here. Yeah, that's going to be local. That's better. No. Boop. It's actually pretty fast, and as long as we're not going over, I mean, there's no network latency here. That was, they're randomly generated. There's no more than I think 300 or so that would be generated here, but that was only 3 seconds. And considering I had to write about 80, well, under 100 lines of code to achieve it versus several hundred, and it took me longer to write the Go code. I find Go, for me, it feels very natural because I was a C programmer for over a decade. So even though I've been doing mostly Perl for the past umpty-dump years, I still find it very, my mind still kind of travels over it quickly. But there's really no comparison still. If you've got a high-level language that gives you the tools to do things, and also there's more to it. If I want to do something more elaborate than this is a fairly simple example. Then I can compose the methods together to get a lot more done. So let's see if I can get back to my. Since I did get Wi-Fi, let's just see what happens when we. Oops. Can't remember, it's minus. I did find that HTTPS was supported better with Perl 6. Oh, sorry, was not as well supported. I was seeing some issues, but I think that'll probably be fixed fairly soon. Let's see what happens with that one. Well, that's fairly good. I didn't see all the mailman links though, so I suspect there may be something. I need to debug that. I don't know. I checked simpler websites and it worked fine. Sorry, what?
They might start it just come up or just a step forward.
You did not make the URLs absolute, so
Oh, I had some code to do that, but yes,
But-
that's...
yeah.
You're also shifting things off the end of an array that you might not be at the end of.
It's a good point. This one works. Oops. Only if you spell it right. Okay, I cheated. Shift is supposed to get the first one. It's supposed to get the... See if that crashes. I still can't type. Anyway, I'll probably stop this one. But just having to think a bit more about this one. Anyway. Hey! If I can repeat this, I'll report it. It never fails with my local host one, that's why. Okay, that's pretty much all I had to show. I have one more slide, but let's see if I can get back to the... So I've showed you the Perl 6 Spider code. So basically that's it. But I would like to thank our generous sponsors because they made sure that we could do this today. And I'd like to thank you all for your attention. You've been a very good audience. And if you have any questions, please ask. 10 minutes. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. You did run the Go script through Go run,
Yes.
and then your script. Is there an embeddable Go compiler for your script or for your program so that you can at runtime compile new Go code into your program, or is that without?
No, it'll have to do the whole. He's asking if is there sort of an embeddable. I'm not sure I understand you. It's just sort of a just-in-time kind of compiler, or something that it doesn't delta or anything. It recompiles everything. But one of the things that the Go team are really keen on is that their compilation is extremely fast. It's faster than Perl 5 doing equivalent code. So. And you just don't notice, so you don't really notice it. You can type Go run something. I mean, most of the time, nobody's going to do that. You only do that during development, and you have binary that you then ship, which is handy. But you can develop as though you're writing a scripting language. Any other questions? I think we had them already while we were. Oh, thank you very much.